Hey guys, tonight we're gliding past the wrought iron gates and the freshly clipped hedges into one of the most polished, most exhausting, and most quietly ruthless jobs in American history. Being a 1950s country club wife. Not a job with a paycheck. Not a job with a title. Not a job anyone will ever quite admit exists. Just a bottomless schedule of bridge games, charity balls, weekly hair appointments, and cocktails mixed and waiting before your husband has even reached the front door. Before we settle in, a quiet thank you for keeping me company tonight. And if these sleepy histories help you drift off, go ahead and like and subscribe so more night owls can find their way to us. And down in the comments, tell me your town and the one family casserole that still owes everybody an apology. Now dim the lamps, settle back into the pillows, and maybe set aside any late-night snack that happens to be suspended inside lime gelatin. Could you wake up before the sun every single morning just to make a whole house look like it cleans itself? What's the cocktail equivalent of a morning commute, and why is it already poured? Could you survive a world where one anonymous vote, one little black ball, quietly decides whether your family is allowed to exist? What happens when you get dropped from the Tuesday bridge game and absolutely no one will tell you why? How does a single hairdo demand a 7-day defensive campaign? Did anyone sleep? The gloves? Mandatory? Congratulations. You just woke up in Greenwich, Connecticut, 1956. Your hair is set firmly enough to survive a hurricane and a minor scandal. A girdle is waiting for you that grips like a warm, disappointed handshake. And somewhere across town, a committee is calmly deciding the fate of a family who will never learn that their name was even spoken. Good luck. You wake before anyone else in the house because the house is supposed to look as though it runs itself. It is still dark out, and the first job of the day is to make the morning appear effortless by 6:30. You move quietly down the stairs in your robe, you put the coffee on, and you begin assembling the version of the household that everyone else will walk into already finished. Nobody will see the work. That is the entire point of the work, and you are already behind on it. The milkman Earl sets the glass bottles on the step at 5 sharp and never once looks up, which is the most respectful thing anyone will do for you all day. You collect them in bare feet on cold tile. The kitchen is yours at this hour, and only at this hour, before it becomes a stage with an audience. The percolator, meanwhile, has opinions of its own. It gurgles and sputters and takes its time, performing the labour of coffee with the theatrical reluctance of a union worker on the last day before vacation. You wait. You set out the cups. You arrange the morning the way a stagehand arranges a set before the curtain, quietly, in the dark, so the scene appears to have always been there. There is a specific illusion you are paid in compliments to maintain, and it is this, that the household feeds and cleans and runs itself by magic while everyone else sleeps like tiny, contented royalty. The bacon does not lay itself in the pan. The table does not set itself. The newspaper does not stroll in from the porch and fold itself beside his plate, though on the worst mornings you have briefly, privately resented it for refusing to. You are the magic. The magic has cold feet and a list. By 6 you have the eggs ready to go and the lunch is half built. Your robe is still on, because the performance of being dressed comes later, after the first wave of labour, when you will trade the robe for the version of yourself the family is permitted to see. For now you are backstage. Backstage you are allowed to look tired. It is the only place you are. The house is quiet in a way that has texture to it. The refrigerator hums, a floorboard upstairs settles. Outside, the street is still blue and damp, the lawns grey with dew, the whole suburb holding its breath before the commuter rush turns it into a parade of departing cars. You stand at the centre of all that quiet, dark, and sleeping silence, and do the careful math of the morning, the order of operations that gets 1 man to a train and 2 children to a bus without anyone glimpsing the machinery. It is not that the work is hard. Exactly. It is that the work is invisible, and invisible work has a way of not counting. A made bed is noticed only when it is unmade. A clean floor is noticed only when it is dirty. You live on the wrong side of attention, where your successes vanish the instant they happen, and only your failures leave a mark. The standard, naturally, is perfection, and perfection is the one result that generates no comment at all. You pour the first cup of coffee, the one that is yours, and you drink it standing up, because sitting down feels like a thing you have not earned yet. The clock above the stove ticks towards 6:30. Somewhere above you, an alarm is about to go off and the day is about to acquire witnesses. You take one more swallow. You straighten the dish towel into a clean line. You compose your face into something rested and glad. Then you climb the stairs to wake the house you have already spent 2 hours pretending woke up on its own. You have one job at breakfast and a hard deadline attached to it, which is getting your husband fed, dressed, and out the door in time to make the early train into the city. He reads the paper while you cook the eggs. He drinks the coffee you poured. He is thinking about his desk, and you are thinking about the clock, the toast, the lunch, the train, and the specific knot of his tie. The train does not wait. Neither, increasingly, does he. Walter folds the newspaper into a precise quarter and props it against the sugar bowl, reading the financial pages with the grim focus of a man defusing a bomb. He does not look at the eggs. The eggs are simply expected to exist, the way the floor is expected to be there when he puts his foot down. You move at the speed of the clock. Toast, butter, the coffee topped up before the cup runs empty. The second egg slid onto his plate at the exact moment the first one disappears. This is timing of a high order. A short order cook at a diner does roughly this work and gets tips and a paycheck and a stool to lean on. You get the quiet satisfaction of a tie knotted correctly and a train caught with 90 seconds to spare. The train is the real head of this household. It departs when it departs. It does not care that the briefcase went missing, that the youngest cannot find a shoe, that the weather turned and the good coat is at the cleaner's. The train is a punctual, indifferent, and absolute tyrant, and every morning the entire house bends around its schedule like courtiers around a particularly demanding king. You knot the tie. You always knot the tie, because somewhere it was decided that a grown man who runs a department of 40 people cannot be trusted with the geometry of his own collar. You smooth it flat against his chest. You hand him the hat, the briefcase, the lunch, in that order, an assembly line of one, dispatching him into the world looking like a man who woke up effortlessly competent. He kisses your cheek. It is a nice kiss, an affectionate one, and it lasts exactly as long as a kiss lasts when a train is involved. Then he is down the front walk, and the car door shuts, and the engine turns over, and you watch the taillights swing out toward the station with the rest of the neighborhood's husbands, a great grey flannel migration heading cityward. And then the house is yours again, suddenly, completely, the way a theatre is yours after the audience leaves. The silence rushes back in. The clock keeps ticking, but it ticks for you now, not for him. You stand at the window a moment longer than you strictly need to. There is a thing nobody mentions. You are very good at this. The logistics you just executed, the timing, the anticipation, the seamless delivery of a man to his platform would not be out of place in an airport control tower. Nobody will say so. There is no performance review for getting Walter to the train, no bonus, no nod from a supervisor. There is only the next morning, which will require the identical miracle, and the morning after that, and the long grey ribbon of mornings stretching out past the edge of the calendar. The job has no off-season. The job has no understudy. The job is simply you, every dawn, knotting the same tie around the same neck and aiming it at the same train. You turn from the window. There are 3 plates, 2 glasses, a pan, and a percolator waiting, and beyond them, a whole day of work that will produce nothing anyone can point to. You roll up your sleeves. The train pulls Walter toward his office, and the kitchen pulls you toward yours. You have an automatic washing machine, an electric dryer, a gas range, and a refrigerator with a freezer, and every single one of them was sold to you as freedom. You were told these machines would give you back your day. What they actually gave you was a higher standard, because now that the work is easy, there is no excuse for it not being constant. The sheets can be washed more often, so they must be. The floors can shine, so they will. The machines hum all morning, and so do you. The washing machine in particular was sold as a kind of emancipation, a gleaming white box that would hand you back your Mondays. The advertisement showed a woman in pearls smiling at a porthole of warm, clean and tumbling laundry as though it were a television. Nobody mentioned that the smiling and the pearls were now also part of the job. The machines played a trick, and it was a good one. Before the washer, laundry was a brutal, all-day affair, so it happened once a week and everyone agreed a shirt could be worn twice. After the washer, laundry was easy, and because it was easy, it became endless. The bar rose to meet the new capacity. A thing that can be done effortlessly must therefore be done constantly. The machine did not free you. It promoted you to manager of a facility that never closes. Your neighbour, Missus, Castellano has a new refrigerator the color of a mint, and she opens it for visitors the way other people open a window onto a nice view. It has a freezer compartment. It has little shelves in the door. It hums with the quiet confidence of a status symbol that also keeps the milk cold. You admire it sincerely, and somewhere behind your eyes you calculate what yours now looks like by comparison. The dishwasher arrived promising to abolish the worst job in the kitchen and instead simply relocated it. You still rinse every plate before it goes in because the machine, for all its modern swagger, panics at the sight of an actual food particle. So you wash the dishes, and then the dishwasher washes the dishes, and somehow this counts as the machine doing the work. It has the structural integrity of a mattress. It holds its shape only if you do not lean on it. The gas range lights with a click and a whump and a faint sulfur smell, and it is genuinely better than what came before. You will give it that. The refrigerator genuinely keeps food. The dryer genuinely spares you the clothesline on a grey day. The machines are not villains. They are simply very good at converting saved time directly into raised expectations, the way a raise at work converts directly into a bigger mortgage. And the standard is the thing, always the standard. A house with these machines must be cleaner than a house without them, because what excuse could possibly remain? The dust has no defense now. The wrinkled shirt is no longer bad luck. It is a verdict. Every labor-saving device arrives with a small invisible clause. Now that this is easy, your failure to do it perfectly is entirely your own. You start a load of wash. You wipe down your own refrigerator, a year older and a shade less fashionable than Mrs. Castellano's mint marvel, and you do it tenderly, the way you would polish a slightly embarrassing relative before a party. The machines hum their cheerful industrial chorus, a little anthem of progress, and you move among them like the one employee in a fully automated factory who somehow still does all the work. By the end of the morning, the laundry is folded, the floor is clean, and the kitchen gleams, and not one person will ever know any of it happened. The machines saved you so much time that you are able to fill every minute of it. This, you understand, is what they meant by freedom. You push a steel cart down a fluorescent aisle by yourself, because shopping has recently stopped being a conversation with a grocer and become a solitary errand performed under bright lights. The self-service supermarket is new, and it is enormous, and it assumes you will know exactly what you need without anyone helping you find it. You have a list. You have a budget you are quietly managing without being asked to. You move past the canned goods and the boxed mixes, building the week, and no one speaks to you at all. The old way had a man behind a counter named Mr. Pruitt who knew your mother and would reach things down and put them in a box while you talked about the weather. The new way has a cart with one wheel that pulls left and a floor waxed to a mirror shine and a ceiling of humming lights. Progress, it turns out, is mostly you, alone, comparing the price of two nearly identical cans of peas. The budget is real work that no one ever calls work. Your husband earns the money and you spend it, and the spending is treated as the easy half of the arrangement, the reward for his labor. It is not easy. It is a running calculation of what feeds a family well, impresses the right guests, and still leaves the books balanced when he glances at them on Sunday. You are a finance department of one, operating without a title and without the credit, and you do it in your head between the bread and the cereal. The aisles are designed to defeat you, and they know it. Everything is arranged to put a wanting in you that was not there when you walked in. The boxes are bright. The labels promise. A pyramid of canned soup stands at the end of the row like a small monument to the casserole you will be expected to produce on Thursday. You reach for 2 cans, then a third, because the recipe in the magazine called for 3, and the magazine is never wrong about anything except your entire life. You see other women doing exactly what you are doing, each one alone with her own cart, each one running her own silent arithmetic. You nod. They nod. There is a whole society of women passing one another in these aisles every morning, performing identical, silent, and solitary labor a few feet apart, and somehow never quite together. It is the loneliest crowd in town, and it meets daily by the frozen peas. The convenience foods are the strange new citizens of the cart. Cake from a box, soup from a can, whole dinners that arrive most of the way finished, asking only that you add an egg and pretend. There is no shame in this yet, which is itself surprising. A woman can serve a casserole built on canned soup and a topping of crushed potato chips and be praised for her resourcefulness. The way you might praise someone for a clever shortcut rather than scolding them for a missing one. The shame comes later. For now, the box is your friend, and a slightly suspicious one. You steer the cart to the register, where a young man named Donald bags your week with the speed of someone who would rather be anywhere else. He does not know that the small mountain of paper sacks in front of him is a budget balanced, a menu planned, a husband impressed, and a family fed, all of it decided by you in under an hour under those buzzing lights. To him, it is groceries. To you, it is the morning's quiet executive work, paid in nothing but the right to do it again on Friday. You load the bags into the wood-panelled station wagon. The cart, freed at last, makes a determined break for the open lot and rolls gently into a planter, where it stops, looking satisfied, having achieved the only act of rebellion available to a shopping cart. You leave it there. It earned that. You get dressed in a specific order, and the order begins with a girdle, because everything you're about to wear is built on the assumption that your waist is smaller than it actually is. The silhouette of the decade demands it. You step in, you pull up, you fasten, and you arrange yourself into the shape the dress was cut for. Then come the stockings, clipped to the same garment, and then the shirtwaist with its tight bodice and full skirt. By the time you are dressed, you have already been holding your breath for several minutes. The girdle is not a garment so much as a quiet contract you sign every morning. It grips you like a warm, disappointed handshake. It smooths, it flattens, it holds you in the precise architecture that Mr. Christian Dior decreed back in 1947 when he stood in Paris and decided, on behalf of every woman who would never meet him, that the waist would be tiny and the skirt would be enormous, and that was simply that. The new look, they called it, as though restriction were a fresh idea. The look requires a foundation, and the foundation requires engineering. There is elastic. There is in some models actual boning, the kind of structural support you would expect in a small bridge. There are, by the garment's own logic, exactly 3 acceptable ways to breathe in it, and none of them is deep. Underneath the pretty floral cotton, you are wearing the load-bearing infrastructure of a suspension cable, and you are expected to sit, stand, and laugh charmingly while wearing it. You clip the stockings to the little garter tabs, 4 small acts of faith that they will hold through the day and not betray you mid-luncheon with a slow, humiliating slide. The stockings have seams. The seams must be straight. A crooked seam is a small public confession that you got dressed in a hurry, and getting dressed in a hurry is not a thing women like you are permitted to have done. The shirtwaist goes on over all of it, buttoned to the throat, belted at the waist, the girdle invented. It is a nice dress. It is gingham or a tidy floral, cheerful, crisp, and relentlessly pretty, and it makes you look exactly like the woman in the advertisement, which is the entire goal and also a slightly unsettling one. You have dressed yourself to resemble a drawing of a happy housewife. The drawing, you note, does not have to breathe. Something genuinely strange is at work here. The discomfort is not a side effect. It is the product. The whole point of the foundation is that holding a shape costs something, and the cost is the proof. A woman who looks effortless is a woman who has paid for it in flesh, in shallow breaths, in the small red lines, the elastic leaves on her skin like the marks of a friendly trap. Comfort would be vulgar. Comfort would suggest you had stopped trying. Your daughter Susan watches you dress with the solemn attention of a junior officer studying the manual. She is 8. She does not need any of this yet, and she is learning all of it anyway, absorbing the order of operations, the breath held, the seams checked, the shape assumed. You catch her eye in the mirror. You smile. You do not say what you are thinking, which is that you are training her to put on the same warm trap in 20 years and call it getting ready. You give the belt a final tug. You check the seams one last time over your shoulder. You stand a little straighter than your body wants to, because the dress only works if you cooperate with it, and you have a great deal of cooperating to do today. Fully assembled, smoothed and cinched and cheerful, you go downstairs to begin a day that the girdle has already decided you will spend upright. You went to the beauty parlour on Friday, and now your entire week is organised around protecting what was done there. The wash and set cost real money and real time, and it is meant to last until the next appointment, which means your hair is not a daily thing you manage, but a fragile structure you defend. You sleep on it carefully. You wrap it at night. You do not get it wet. The hairdo is a small monument, and you are its full-time caretaker until Friday comes around again. The set is built, not grown. Your hairdresser, Miss Vivian, rolls each section onto a curler with the brisk certainty of a woman laying brick, then seals the whole construction under a dryer hood that roars like a small aircraft and bakes your scalp to a gentle simmer. You sit. You read a magazine that tells you to spend more time on your hair. The irony does not get a vote. The nights are where the real defense happens. You sleep in rollers. You sleep in a scarf knotted over the rollers. You arrange your head on the pillow like a woman transporting a wedding cake across a dirt road, holding the position, minimizing the jostle, sacrificing your own comfort to the cause of looking. By morning, as though you simply woke up this way. Nobody wakes up this way. Nobody has ever woken up this way. That is the entire premise of the scarf. Water is the enemy. Rain is a tactical emergency. A sudden shower sends you scrambling for cover with the urgency of a soldier under fire, clutching a plastic rain bonnet that folds down to the size of a stamp and unfolds into a small, humiliating tent. You wear it. Of course you wear it. The alternative is arriving somewhere with a collapsed set, and a collapsed set announces to the world that you failed to plan for weather, which around here is a moral category. The styles themselves keep evolving, each one more ambitious than the last. Early in the decade it was the poodle cut, a head of tight, cheerful and bouncy curls. Then came the French pleat, smooth and architectural. By the end, the beehive will rise off the scalp like a structure that requires a permit, a tower of hair roughly the size of a toaster, held aloft by faith, lacquer, and a full can of spray. The hair gets bigger, the defense gets harder, the scarf stays on. There is something quietly absurd about all of it. The hair is supposed to look natural, and achieving that natural look requires a weekly professional appointment, nightly engineering, daily vigilance, and a chemical arsenal that could strip paint. Naturalness, it turns out, is the most labour-intensive look available. The woman who actually let her hair do what it wanted would stand out instantly, and not in the way anyone wants to stand out. You unwrap the scarf in the morning and inspect the results in the mirror, turning your head slowly, looking for the dent, the flat spot, the small betrayal that the pillow left behind. It held. Today it held. You give it a light spray to be sure, a fine mist that settles over the whole thing and locks it in place, and the smell of it fills the small bathroom, sharp and sweet and faintly flammable, a scent you will carry with you into every room you enter today. The set has to survive 5 more days. 5 more nights of careful sleeping, 5 more mornings of inspection, 5 more brushes with weather and steam and the simple physics of being a person who moves. You meet Miss Vivian again on Friday. Until then, you carry the monument carefully on top of your head, and you guard it like the small, ridiculous, expensive treasure it is. You have read, in more than one magazine, that you should freshen up before your husband comes home, and you have absorbed the instruction completely. The idea is that he should not arrive to a tired woman who has been working since before dawn. He should arrive to someone rested, pretty, and pleased to see him. So in the late afternoon, you fix your face, change your dress, and reapply the version of yourself that hides the day you actually had. The day does not get easier, it simply gets concealed. The magazine is very clear about this, and the magazine is relentless. It suggests in a chipper italic voice that you touch up your makeup, tie a fresh ribbon in your hair, and perhaps dab on a little perfume so that you greet him looking as fresh as morning. It does not suggest he do anything in return, because the document only runs in one direction, and the direction is toward you looking lovely at 5:45. The timing is the whole trick. At around 5, you stop being the woman who scrubbed the bathroom and start becoming the woman in the advertisement. You wash your hands, you powder away the shine, you draw the lipstick back on, a fresh, confident red, the war paint of contentment, which by this hour is more of a costume choice than a mood. The face you put on is not a lie, exactly. It is more of a costume, worn for an audience of one, in a play where you are also the stagehand, the writer, and the cleaning crew. There is a small absurdity here that nobody acknowledges. You are concealing labour from the one person who most directly benefits from it. Walter comes home tired from a day at a desk, and he is allowed to come home tired, allowed to loosen his tie and sink into a chair and announce that he is beat. You come home from nowhere because you never left, and you are required to look like you napped. His exhaustion is a badge. Yours is a flaw to be powdered over. Nobody ever wrote that rule down, and nobody has to. You change the dress because the day dress has the day on it, a faint constellation of small stains and wrinkles, the archaeology of hours. Off it comes. On goes something crisp and uncreased, a clean costume for the evening shift. You catch yourself in the mirror reassembling the woman he married, smoothing her, refreshing her, propping her back up into someone who looks like she's been waiting pleasantly all afternoon, rather than running a small unpaid institution. Something here surprises even you. There are days you almost enjoy it, the little ritual of repair, the 5 quiet minutes that are technically for him but feel, briefly, like they are for you. The cool water, the good lipstick, the small act of deciding what your face will say. Then the car turns into the drive, and the gravel crunches, and the 5 minutes end, and the face goes on duty. Walter comes through the door and sets his hat on the hook with the same tired flourish he uses every evening. A man arriving at his harbour. He kisses your refreshed cheek. He tells you that you look nice. He means it, and it lands. And it is also, in its quiet way, a review of a performance he does not know was a performance. You smile the smile you reapplied for exactly this moment. The drink is poured, the dinner is near. The evening begins, and you carry it the way you carry everything, on a face arranged to suggest you are not carrying anything at all. Behind the powder, the day is all still there, every minute of it. You simply never let it show, because showing it was never part of the job. You are allowed onto the golf course on exactly one morning of the week, because the weekends belong to the men and the club has made that arithmetic very clear. Your tea time is Tuesday, early, before the husbands want the course back. You play your round inside that window, and you understand that the window is a courtesy rather than a right. The course is the same course your husband plays. The grass is the same grass. The only thing that changes is who is permitted to stand on it and when. Tuesday morning, then, the fairways belong to the women, and only Tuesday morning. By noon, the access expires like a parking meter. The lawn could rent itself out as a metaphor, if anyone here admitted to noticing one. There is something faintly comic about the precision of it, the way an entire sex is granted a single supervised visit per week to a lawn their husband's dues helped pay for. You do not point this out at the first tee. Pointing things out is not a Tuesday activity. Let's talk about the grass, which is wet at this hour, beaded silver with dew, soaking the hem of your skirt and the toes of your shoes within the first 2 holes. The light is low and gold and genuinely gorgeous. The course at its most beautiful precisely when it is handed to the people allowed on it least. You breathe the cool green smell of cut fairway. You take your swing. For a moment, club in hand, you are simply a person doing a thing, which is rarer in your week than it ought to be. The club pro, Mr. Lindquist, materializes at the practice green to adjust your grip, folding your fingers over the club with the gentle gravity of a man diffusing something delicate, murmuring about your wrists. He is kind. He is also paid to be there on Tuesdays the way a lifeguard is paid to watch a kiddie pool, present, attentive, and slightly underemployed by the assignment. You thank him, you fix the wrist. The wrist, briefly, behaves. The strange part sits in your own hands. You are good at this. Several of you are. There are women in this Tuesday group who could outdrive their own husbands and quietly do, on the rare mixed occasion when the rules relax enough to find out. None of it counts toward anything. There is no women's tournament that matters, no leaderboard anyone reads, no consequence to a beautiful round except your own private knowledge of it. The skill is real. The arena for it is a Tuesday morning that ends at lunch. Your playing partner, Mrs. Ainsley, sinks a long putt and allows herself exactly one small fist of triumph before smoothing her face back into pleasantness, because even joy here comes with a portion size. You applaud, she nods. The 2 of you walk the next fairway in the wet grass, talking lightly about nothing, both of you aware that this hour is the freest you will feel until next Tuesday, and both of you far too well raised to say so out loud. The round moves quickly because it has to. There is a clock on this pleasure. You can feel noon approaching like a tide, the moment when the course reverts to its weekend owners and the women fold themselves back into the clubhouse, into the card room, into the schedule. You play the last holes a little slower on purpose. Stretching the morning, the way you linger at a window you will not get to look out of again for a while. You finish on the 18th as the sun climbs high enough to dry your hem. You shake hands. You hand your clubs to the boy who carts them away, and you walk up toward the clubhouse, toweling the dew off your shoes, already a guest again on the lawn where, for 3 holes this morning, you almost felt like a member. You have a standing place in a bridge game that meets more than once a week, and that place is worth far more than the cards suggest. The game rotates among the same houses and the same women, and your seat at it is a precise measurement of where you stand socially. You play well enough, you arrive on time, you bring the right thing, but the real game underneath the card game is the one where you keep your seat, because the women who lose their seats are never told why, exactly. There are 4 of you at the table and a 5th woman, always, hovering at the edge of the circle, invited to lunch but not to play, a kind of understudy waiting for someone to fall ill or fall out of favour. Everyone pretends not to know this is what she is. She pretends hardest of all. The 5th chair is the most honest object in the room, and nobody looks directly at it. The cards themselves genuinely matter, and you genuinely play to win. Bridge is a real game. Hard, elegant, and unforgiving, and a careless partner can cost you a rubber and your dignity at once. You count the cards, you read the bidding. You and Mrs. Pennington have an understanding across the table built over years of finesse tricks, a partnership more fluent than some marriages in the room, including, on a bad week, your own. The play is sharp. The play is the easy part. Mrs. Pennington shuffles the deck with the crisp authority of a bank teller counting bills, squares the cards on the felt, and deals them out in 4 clean arcs without once looking down. She runs this table, not officially, there is no office, but everyone knows whose afternoon this is and whose approval keeps you in your chair. You watch her hands, you watch her face, a good deal more. The conversation never stops, and it never quite says what it means. Between the bids, the women talk, and the talk is the actual business of the gathering. Who is redecorating? Whose husband got the account? Whose daughter is running a little wild? It arrives wrapped in sweetness, every blade of it, delivered with a smile and a refill of iced tea. You learn to hear the second meaning under the first, because the woman who only hears the first meaning is the one who gets surprised by the empty chair. Losing your seat is the quiet catastrophe, and it never announces itself. There is no argument, no falling out you could name. The game simply meets one Tuesday without you, at a house where you used to be expected, and a different woman sits in your chair holding your cards, and no one ever says a word about it to your face. You find out the way you find out about whether you missed, secondhand, after the fact, from the shape of the silence. It is a remarkably gentle way to be exiled. So you guard the seat, the way you guard the hairdo, and the budget, and the face at the door, with constant low-effort vigilance. You bring the better dessert. You laugh at the right moment. You lose graciously when losing graciously is the smarter play, banking the goodwill against a future you cannot see. The cards are honest. Everything around the cards is a long, smiling negotiation you are never allowed to admit you are conducting. The rubber ends. Mrs. Pennington tallies the score in her small, neat hand. You gather your gloves and your purse. You thank the hostess warmly. You confirm the next game as though there were no possibility you would not be at it. Then you drive home, your seat secure for one more week, the 5th woman in the rearview mirror, smiling and empty-handed and waiting. You attend a luncheon at the club, and you understand before you arrive that the meal is not really about lunch. It is about the dress you chose, the gloves you remembered, the conversation you steer, and the precise ladylike amount of food you allow yourself to eat in front of the others. You sit up straight. You are charming on cue. You eat the molded salad without appearing to enjoy it too much. Every woman at the table is performing the same restraint, and every woman can tell exactly who is doing it well. The gloves come off at the table and not before, a small choreography everyone has memorized. You peel them finger by finger and fold them into your lap with the others, a table full of women shedding white cotton in quiet unison, like a flock settling. The hat stays on. The hat always stays on. A woman who removed her hat at a luncheon would cause the kind of silence you could pour over pancakes. The food is plentiful, and you are expected to barely touch it. There are exactly 2 acceptable amounts to eat at a club luncheon, less than you want, and visibly less than that. There is chicken, a la king, in a pastry shell. There is the inevitable gelatin, today a pale green ring with shredded carrots suspended inside it like insects in amber. There are little sandwiches with their crusts cut off, because the crust apparently is where the calories and the vulgarity live. You take a sandwich, you eat half. The other half sits on your plate as evidence of your discipline, a small white flag of self-denial. The conversation runs on rails you all laid years ago. You compliment Mrs. Holloway's brooch, which is the correct opening move, and she deflects it modestly, which is the correct response, and the two of you have just exchanged the secret handshake of women who know the rules. Underneath the pleasantries, the real information moves, as it always does, in the spaces between the sentences. Who was not invited today? Who looks tired? Whose marriage, people are gently saying, is going through something. The math of the meal is a peculiar one. The food is abundant precisely so that you can demonstrate, in public, your refusal of it. A feast is laid out as a test of restraint. The woman who eats heartily is read as a woman who has let something slip, and letting things slip is the cardinal sin, more serious than being unkind, nearly as serious as being dull. So you all sit at a banquet and compete, quietly, to want it least. The hostess today is Mrs. DeWitt, and she works the table like a conductor, lifting one conversation, gently lowering another, steering a quiet woman into the light and a loud one back toward the rolls. She refills a glass without being asked. She remembers that you do not care for the dressing and has it served on the side, a small precise kindness that is also a small precise display of her command. You note it. Everyone notes it. Noting is the whole point. There is real pleasure in it too, and that is the part the outside world misses. These are your friends, more or less, the women who know your life because it is theirs, and there is a warmth in the room under all the performance, a warm, genuine, and unguarded ease that flickers up between the calculations. You laugh, truly laugh, at something Mrs. Holloway says about her son's driving. For a moment the meal is just a meal among friends, and then the moment passes and the rails take over again. The luncheon ends as it began, on cue. Gloves go back on, finger by finger. Compliments are exchanged at the door like party favours. You thank the hostess with exactly the right warmth, and you mean most of it. Then you collect your half-eaten discipline and your fully intact reputation, and you carry them both out to the car, the moulded salad sitting untouched on its lettuce leaf behind you, having won. You are responsible, on a regular rotation, for producing food that looks like abundance and arrives without visible effort. The era has very firm ideas about what this food should be. There will be a molded gelatin salad. There will be deviled eggs arranged in concentric rings, shrimp standing in a glass, canapes cut into shapes, and something built on canned soup that you will pretend took longer than it did. You spend the afternoon assembling it. You will spend the evening being complimented on how easy you make it look. The centerpiece, against all reason, is the gelatin. You dissolve the powder, you stir in the cargo, and you pour the whole shivering mixture into a copper mold shaped like a crown, because nothing says elegant like suspending your dinner inside a trembling dome. Into the lime green you fold shrimp, olives, and a fistful of shredded cabbage, ingredients that did not consent to this and never agreed to share a future together. Then you slide it into the refrigerator and ask it, quietly, to set. The unmolding is the most dangerous moment of the day. You dip the mold in warm water for exactly the right count, you invert it onto the good platter, you hold your breath, and you pray to whatever saint governs gelatin. Sometimes it releases with a soft, obscene sigh and stands there glistening and proud. Sometimes it slumps. A slumped mold is a catastrophe, a public sag, and there is no repairing it, only serving it apologetically and hoping the cabbage distracts from the collapse. The deviled eggs go in rings, the shrimp goes in its glass with the cocktail sauce blushing at the bottom, and the canapes get cut into little rounds and diamonds with a doily underneath, because the doily, somehow, is mandatory. The whole spread is a small architecture of effort disguised as ease. It is meant to look as though it bloomed there on the sideboard while you were doing your nails, when in fact you have been on your feet since 2 and your nails are the least of it. Something here is genuinely upside down. The convenience foods are the proud centerpiece, not the shameful shortcut. You build a casserole on a can of cream of mushroom soup, you crush a handful of potato chips over the top for a crust, and you serve it not with apology but with a flourish, because canned and boxed and instant are the gleaming modern future, and the future is something you are supposed to show off. A woman who made everything from scratch would seem oddly behind the times, like someone churning her own butter at a cocktail party. Your mother-in-law, Mrs. Garrett, arrives early to inspect, lifting the edge of a napkin to peer at what is underneath with the suspicion of a customs officer, murmuring that in her day a hostess would never have used a mix. You smile. You agree warmly that times have changed. You do not mention that her day involved a cook and a girl and a kitchen full of help, and that the mix is what is left after all the help went home and the work stayed. The buffet comes together at last, lush and bright and faintly jiggling, a table groaning with the appearance of plenty. It is genuinely beautiful, in the strange, overdressed way of the era, every dish gleaming, bright and proud, every garnish in place. You step back and look at it the way a set designer looks at a stage just before the doors open, checking the sightlines, adjusting one shrimp, wiping a thumbprint off the platter. Then the guests arrive, and they exclaim, and they tell you it is all just lovely, and they ask how you find the time, and you say something light and modest that gives nothing away. The molded crown holds its shape on the platter, radiating the quiet confidence of a dish that has no idea what it cost you. You hand out plates. The crown jiggles once as the first slice goes in, a shiver of pride or warning, and never says which. You owe people things, and you keep track of every one of them, because the social economy you live in runs entirely on reciprocity. A handwritten thank you note is mandatory after any hospitality, and an invitation you accepted is a debt of an invitation you now owe back. You keep the ledger mostly in your head. Who hosted whom? Who is owed a dinner? Who was passed over and remembers it? The accounting never closes. You settle one debt at a dinner party and incur 3 new ones before dessert. The note must go out within the day, written by hand, on your own stationery, in ink, Mrs. Amy Vanderbilt has published an entire book on this, and the book is treated less like advice and more like scripture, consulted on matters of stationery, weight and salutation with the gravity other people reserve for the law. You sit at the little desk. You uncap the pen. You compose, for the 4th time this week, a fresh and original way to say that the chicken was lovely and the evening a delight. It is real debt, this, just paid in dinners instead of dollars. When you accept an invitation, you have borrowed an evening, and the loan comes due. You must have them back, at your table, within a decent interval, or you become a woman who takes and does not give, which is a reputation that spreads like a stain, so you track it. You know, without writing it down, that you owe the Hendersons, that the Coopers owe you, and that Mrs. Pratt has now had you twice with nothing offered in return, a small, mounting, and unspoken awkwardness you will eventually have to resolve. The stationery itself is a quiet declaration. The right paper, the right monogram, the right restrained colour all say something about you before you have written a word, and the wrong choice says something too, something you do not want said. You keep a drawer of it, sorted, ready, an arsenal of correspondence. A thank you note on cheap paper is worse than no note at all, the way a gift in a torn box undoes itself. Here is the genuinely surprising part. This is bookkeeping, full stop, a ledger of obligations maintained entirely in one woman's head, updated daily, never balanced, and never once acknowledged as the administrative labour it plainly is. A man who tracked accounts this precisely would be called a controller and given an office. You are called a good hostess and given more stationery. The skill is identical. The title and the salary went somewhere else. Your sister-in-law, Eleanor, drops by mid-morning and finds you at the desk mid-note and laughs that she simply cannot keep up with all the writing and has half decided to stop. You smile and tell her she mustn't, lightly, as though it were a charming little vanity, while privately you know that Eleanor is 3 notes behind and that people have begun, very gently, to mention it. The notes are not optional. Eleanor is conducting an experiment whose results will arrive as a slow, quiet cooling she will not connect to the cause. You seal the envelope, you address it in your good clean hand, you set it on the little silver tray by the door for the afternoon post. One debt acknowledged. You glance at the calendar, where the coming weeks bristle with engagements, each one a future note, a future dinner owed, a fresh entry in the ledger that lives behind your eyes. The arithmetic of it never sleeps, because the moment you stop counting is the moment you fall behind, and falling behind is how women quietly vanish from the list. You cap the pen. You straighten the blotter. There will be another evening tonight, another kindness to acknowledge tomorrow, another thank you to compose in fresh words about a chicken much like every other chicken. You keep the books. Nobody asked you to, and nobody could stop you if they tried, because the whole warm machine of the season runs on exactly this, and you are its quiet, unpaid accountant. You have been advised, by Betty Crocker no less, to have a cocktail mixed and ready for your husband the moment he walks in, and you have taken the advice seriously enough to time it. He comes home tired from the city. The drink is supposed to be waiting, cold and correct, so that his evening can begin smoothly the instant he arrives. So you watch the clock in the late afternoon, you listen for the car, and you mix the thing to be ready not when he asks for it, but before he thinks to. Betty Crocker put it in writing, in that cheerful, instructive voice, that the clever wife keeps an appetizing cocktail ready for her weary husband. Read it again, and it becomes something closer to a job description with a garnish. The clever wife, the weary husband, the drink that beats him to the door. Somewhere in there a whole arrangement is quietly spelled out, and it goes down easier with gin. The timing is everything. Too early and the ice melts and the martini turns warm and sad, a cocktail that has given up. There are exactly 3 acceptable temperatures for it, and you hit yours in the dark. Too late and you are fumbling at the bar while he stands there still in his hat, and the entire effect, the seamless welcome, is ruined. So you listen. You have learned the specific sound of his car against all the other cars, the particular crunch of his tires on your gravel, and at that sound you reach for the shaker like a fire horse at a bell. The martini is a small, precise and practiced ritual, and you have it memorized in your hands. The gin, cold from the freezer. The whisper of vermouth, more rumour than ingredient. The stir, never the shake, because he has opinions about this that he considers sophisticated. The olive, speared and lowered. The glass, chilled in advance, beading with cold sweat. You build the thing the same way every single evening. The whole arrangement is genuinely backwards. The drink that greets the weary man is poured by a woman who has been awake and labouring 3 hours longer than he has, and will be awake and labouring 2 hours after he sinks into his chair. His weariness gets a cocktail. Yours gets a dish towel. You are not allowed to be the one who comes home, because in this house you never left, and the person who never leaves does not get a homecoming, only the duty of providing everyone else's. Walter comes through the door, sets down the briefcase, and takes the cold glass from your hand with a sigh of pure arrival, lifting it slightly toward you in a small grateful salute before the first sip. He says it is exactly what he needed. He means it. And it is a sweet moment, genuinely. The tired man and the perfect drink and the wife who knew, and you let yourself enjoy the fact that you are good at this, that you read the evening correctly, that the ice had not yet begun to melt. You pour yourself a small one too, sometimes, and stand with him a moment while the day in the city drains out of his shoulders. He tells you a little about the office, the account, the man who is being difficult. You listen, and you steer, and you soothe, performing the second job that begins the instant the first one's drink is delivered, the job of being the soft place a hard day lands. It is real care. It is also unmistakably work, and the two have been so thoroughly stirred together that not even you could separate them now. The glass empties. You take it to refill or to wash. The evening tips forward into dinner, into the children, into the long second shift that waits past the cocktail hour. You mix the welcome. You poured the calm. You will mix it again tomorrow at this same hour, at the sound of these same tires, a small cold ritual of love and labour that you have stopped trying to tell apart. You have, in the medicine cabinet, a small prescription that a great many women you know also have, and nobody discusses it directly. It is a tranquilizer, the kind a doctor writes without much fuss, the kind that takes the sharp edge off a day that has no edges anyone can point to. You take it the way you drink your afternoon coffee, as routine maintenance. The pill does not fix anything, because nothing visible is broken. It simply makes the smooth surface easier to keep smooth, which is all anyone is asking of you anyway. The pill is called Milltown, and it arrived in 1955 like a small white answer to a question nobody was allowed to ask out loud. It did not need advertising. Word moved woman to woman, across bridge tables and pharmacy counters, and within 2 years Americans were filling some 36 million prescriptions a year for the stuff, roughly a third of every prescription written. A whole nation discovered, more or less at once, that it would very much like to relax. Your doctor, Maislish, writes the prescription with the brisk goodwill of a man handing out lollipops, scarcely glancing up, asking how you have been sleeping, and not waiting terribly long for the answer. He is kind, which is part of the trouble. He hears that you feel a vague heaviness you cannot name, a flatness in the bright, clean days, and he reaches for the pad, because the pad is what he has, and a name for the feeling is not something either of you is going to find in his office. The feeling itself is the genuinely strange thing, because by every visible measure you have nothing to feel it about. The house is handsome, the children are healthy, the husband is faithful, and the freezer is full. You have the life that the magazines promise will make a woman content, and you are, somehow, not. And the gap between how good it looks and how it actually sits in your chest is the exact size and shape of the pill that closes it. You are simply, quietly, running on a frequency the good life does not account for. Here is what nobody says at the table. The cocktail hour and the medicine cabinet are running the same errand. The martini takes the edge off going down. The Milltown takes it off more reliably and without the smell. Together they keep an entire affluent suburb gently, pleasantly muffled, a whole community of capable, restless, and well-dressed women turned down half a notch, so the days stay smooth and the smiles stay up, and nobody has to look too hard at the flatness underneath. It is wellness, decades before the word, a quiet chemistry of gin and small white tablets that everyone uses and no one names. Your friend Marjorie keeps hers in a little enamel box in her purse, and at the club she will open it with a small private click and take one with a sip of iced tea, mid-sentence, without breaking stride, the way you might pause to fix an earring. You both pretend you did not see. There is a whole silent sisterhood in it, a thing shared and never mentioned, passed between women who would sooner die than admit the perfect life requires a daily dose to be survivable. The pill is small and the feeling it manages is large, the saddest arithmetic in the medicine cabinet. You take it. The edges soften. The afternoon goes a little gauzy and kind, and the things that were quietly pressing on you press a little less, and you are able to set the table and greet the door and be, once again, the woman who has nothing to complain about and somehow needs help not to. You close the cabinet. Your face in the mirror looks rested, calm, fine, entirely fine. You go down to start the dinner. The bottle waits on its shelf for tomorrow, and tomorrow it will be there, patient and white and discreet, the most reliable friend in a house full of people who think you are perfectly happy. You are hosting your husband's boss for dinner, and you understand without being told that you are being evaluated. The meal has to be excellent without looking laboured. The house has to be flawless without looking anxious. You have to be warm, quick, and charming through every course while managing the kitchen, the drinks, the conversation, and your husband's nerves. None of this is your job in any official sense. All of it is your job in the only sense that matters tonight, which is the sense that decides whether he gets the promotion. The boss is Mr. Renfrew, and he is coming with his wife, which doubles the examination because Mrs. Renfrew will be reading the room the way you would read it, clocking the silver, the centerpiece, the ease or strain in your smile, the precise temperature of the roast. 2 evaluations are happening at one table tonight, and only the men think the evening is about the men. You and Mrs. Renfrew both know better. Walter has been nervous since Tuesday and is now pacing the front room, rearranging the magazines into a fan and then back into a stack, which is his entire contribution to the preparations. He keeps asking if the wine is right. You answer him calmly while basting the roast and timing the potatoes and listening for the doorbell, running the whole operation from the kitchen like an air traffic controller talking down a panicking pilot. The house has been cleaned to a gleam that took 2 days and will be invisible if you did it correctly. The dining room waits, set with the good china, the polished silver, the candles unlit until the last moment, so they look fresh. The roast is timed to the minute. The first course is chilling. You have rehearsed the evening in your head like a general before a campaign, and the campaign has exactly one acceptable outcome, which is that everyone leaves believing the whole thing simply happened the way weather happens, with no general anywhere in sight. Held up to the light, one part of this is genuinely outrageous. Your husband's career advancement rests, tonight, substantially on your roast and your charm, and there is no version of the evening in which you will be credited for it. If Walter gets the promotion, Walter got the promotion. If the evening goes wrong, it will somehow have gone wrong around you. You carry all the risk and none of the title, which is a deal you never signed and cannot leave. The doorbell rings. You light the candles in one pass, you untie the apron and hang it swiftly, you arrange your face into delighted surprise, and you reach the door beside Walter looking like a woman with nothing on her mind but the pleasure of company. Mr. Renfrew booms a greeting. Mrs. Renfrew takes in the room in one smooth sweep and tells you it all looks just beautiful, and the 2 of you smile at each other, each knowing exactly what the other is doing. The evening runs on rails you laid. You feed them, you charm them, you draw the quiet one out and steer the loud one gently. You make sure Mr. Renfrew's glass is never empty and the conversation never lands anywhere awkward. The roast is perfect. The candles hold. Walter relaxes by the second course, buoyed by a competence he is not even aware he is floating on. You watch him shine in the warm light you arranged, and you feel, underneath the performance, a flicker of the old strange pride. They leave near 11, full and pleased, Mr. Renfrew clapping Walter on the shoulder in a way that means something good. The door closes. Walter turns to you glowing, certain he was marvellous, and he was, partly, and you let him have it. Then you take off your shoes and survey the wreckage of the triumph, the dishes, the glasses, the guttered candles, the whole quiet evidence of the evening's invisible author, and you begin, alone, to clean up the promotion you just won him. You did not apply for a position at your husband's company, and yet the company has opinions about you anyway. Firms in this decade quietly interview the wives of the men they are considering, sometimes over a dinner that is really an audition, to decide whether a woman will be an asset or a liability. You are part of the package they are buying. Your manners, your discretion, your ability to charm a client are all line items in a deal you were never shown. You work for the firm just does not pay you. The interview rarely calls itself an interview. It is a dinner, a weekend at the senior man's lake house, a foursome of golf where the wives ride along, and somewhere in the easy pleasantness a quiet assessment is running. Can she hold a conversation? Does she drink too much? Will she embarrass him in front of a client? Or will she be the one who remembers the client's wife's name and the client's daughter's college, and smooths an entire evening no one realized needed smoothing? The company is hiring 2 people. It has only budgeted for one. Consider the file they are keeping, the unwritten one. A wife who shines can lift a man a rung he could not have reached alone. A wife who falters, who says the wrong thing at the Christmas party or lets her unhappiness show through the powder, can quietly cost him the promotion, and he may never even be told that the reason was you. The verdict on your performance gets delivered to his career, not to your face. You are reviewed constantly and informed never. Mrs. Alcott, 3 doors down, is held up at every gathering as the model, the wife who reads the room before she enters it, who once diffused a tense dinner by drawing out a furious client about his roses until the man forgot what he had been angry about. The story is told admiringly, the way you would tell the story of a closer who landed a deal. Mr. Alcott made vice president. Everyone credits Mr. Alcott. The roses go unmentioned in the official version. Weighed honestly, one fact here is genuinely remarkable. You are an employee of a corporation that will deny, flatly and forever, that it employs you. There is no contract, no salary, no pension, no title on a door. There is only the expectation, total and unspoken, that you will perform the relationship work, the social labor, the charm and the memory and the grace that makes your husband more valuable than the next man with the same resume and a duller wife. You are his competitive advantage. You are also entirely off the books. You learn the company's people the way he learns its numbers. You carry an entire org chart in your head, a second map of the firm drawn in relationships instead of titles, and you navigate it flawlessly at every function, steering Walter clear of the wrong conversations like a tugboat guiding a large, confident ship that has no idea the harbour is full of rocks. There is a pride in being good at it, and you do not entirely trust the pride because it is the wary, complicated, and reluctant pride of someone excellent at a job she was conscripted into and cannot quit. You were married into this work, the marrying and the hiring folded into the same ceremony, and no one mentioned the second contract until you were 3 years deep in honouring it. Still, you honour it well. The season turns and the functions keep coming, the dinners and the outings and the long, charming evenings where the real work hides inside the small talk. You put on the dress, you learn the names, you charm the difficult client and remember the right daughter's college and smooth the evening no one will know needed smoothing. The firm prospers, Walter rises, and somewhere in a building downtown, in no file anyone will ever show you, the company quietly counts you as one of its best investments and pays you, as agreed, in nothing at all. You are running the annual charity ball, which means you are running a budget, a vendor list, a seating chart, a committee, and a months-long campaign of organisation that would be called management anywhere else. The work is real and the stakes are real. Even though the pay is nothing and the public credit goes to the cause rather than to you, You are good at this. You are, in fact, better at this than at almost anything else you are permitted to do. The ball is the closest thing to a corner office you will ever be handed. The budget alone would humble a small business. There is the ballroom to book, the band to hire, the florist to negotiate, the caterer to wrangle, the printer who is always late with the programs, and the delicate matter of the ticket price, set high enough to raise real money and low enough that the right people will still come and feel generous about it. You hold the whole thing in a leather folio you carry everywhere, and you run figures in it at red lights, a chief executive whose corner office is the front seat of a station wagon. Let's talk about the seating chart, which is not a diagram but a minefield. Every name is a relationship, and every relationship is a small bomb. The feuding sisters cannot share a table. The man who was passed over for club president must not be seated below the man who got it. The big donor expects to be near the dais and will remember, coldly and for years, if he is not. You move the little cards around the floor plan for 3 full evenings, solving a puzzle with no solution, only a least bad arrangement that you will defend to your last breath. Your co-chair, Mrs. Lindgren, arrives at your kitchen table with her own folio and her own opinions, and the two of you go to war pleasantly over the centerpieces, settling it the way capable women settle things, with a compromise neither of you loves and both of you can sell to the committee. She is sharp. You are sharp. Between you there is enough administrative talent to run an actual corporation, and the largest enterprise either of you will ever be trusted with is a single glittering evening that ends at midnight. One thing lands strangely once you see it. This is executive work, plainly, and you are demonstrably excellent at it, and there is no other place in your entire life where that excellence is allowed out of the house. You cannot run the company. You cannot run for office. You cannot, at most clubs, even run for the board that governs the place you spend your days. But you can run the charity ball, and so into the charity ball goes everything, all the thwarted, restless, and unspent competence with nowhere legitimate to go, poured into one night of flowers and a cheque for the hospital. There is real joy in it, and that is what makes it ache a little. You are deciding things, dozens of things, and the deciding suits you, fits you, lights something in you that the rest of the schedule leaves dark. You stay up late with the folio and you do not mind the lateness, because the work is yours and it is going somewhere, and at the end of it stands an actual result with your fingerprints all over it, even if your name appears nowhere on the program. The night arrives and the ballroom glows and the band plays and the checks come in, more than last year, a genuine triumph for the hospital and a quiet private one for you. People tell you it was a lovely party. They mean it kindly. You smile and accept it. The word party laid over the months of management like a tablecloth over a workbench, and you carry the secret of what it actually took home with you, the way you carry everything, alone and beautifully arranged. You belong to the junior league, and belonging means understanding a hierarchy that no one writes down but everyone obeys. There are women above you and women below you, and your position is established through committee assignments, through who chairs what, through the small visible markers of seniority and favour. You volunteer. You show up. You take the task you are given without visibly wanting the better one. The League does genuine charitable work, and it also runs a quiet internal politics as intricate as anything downtown, and you are expected to navigate both at once. The work itself is real and worth doing. There are children's hospitals to support, libraries to stock, scholarships to fund, a whole apparatus of civic good that runs substantially on the unpaid hours of women who have nowhere else to put their energy. You wrap the parcels. You staff the drive. You sit through the long meetings and take the careful minutes, because the woman who does not follow through is quietly not asked again. The ladder is the part nobody admits is there. Membership is its own small society with ranks as fixed as any army, and there are exactly 3 acceptable ways to climb it. Be useful, be agreeable, and be patient, never reaching. A woman who openly wants the provisional chair will not get the provisional chair. A woman who serves cheerfully on the rummage committee for 3 years without complaint will be quietly elevated, and everyone will say she earned it, which she did, by mastering the one skill the ladder actually rewards, which is wanting it silently. The woman at the top is Mrs. Whitfield, who has chaired everything worth chairing and now presides over the membership committee with the serene authority of a woman who decides who rises. She remembers everything, every favour, every absence, every provisional who skipped a meeting in 1953. She runs the meeting with a small gavel she taps once, lightly, and a room of capable women falls silent at the sound. You watch her closely and learn. The strangeness is in who fills the room. Many of the women in this room are college educated, several brilliantly so, and some of them held real jobs during the war, ran offices, kept books, did work the world paid them for, and respected. Then the men came home and the jobs went back and the energy had to go somewhere, and it came here, into the league, into a structure that takes all that capability and channels it into rummage drives, and a ladder you climb by never seeming to climb. The talent is enormous. The container is a charity bake sale with a constitution. The politics are conducted entirely in the register of niceness, which makes them harder to read, not easier. A snub arrives as a slightly cooler greeting. An alliance forms over a shared committee and a few warm lunches. A rival is undone not by attack, but by the slow withdrawal of invitations, until she finds herself off the good committees, unsure when it happened. You have learned to read all of it, the temperature of a hello, the meaning of a seating change, because misreading it is how a woman slides down the ladder she did not know she was on. You serve where you are placed and you do it well, banking the goodwill, climbing by inches, playing the long, patient and bloodless game the league rewards. It would be easy to call it small, the committees, the rankings, the quiet wars over who chairs the gala. It is not small to the women in it. It is the one arena they are given. The meeting ends. Mrs. Whitfield taps the gavel once and thanks you all for your service, and you gather your things and exchange warm goodbyes with women you are perpetually, pleasantly manoeuvring around. You have moved up a quarter-inch today, maybe, by saying the right small thing at the right small moment. You drive home tallying it, the way you tally everything, and you understand that you are very good at a game you would never have chosen to be playing. You enter an arrangement in the garden club show, and you do it knowing that the flowers will be judged by women who know exactly what they are looking at. Horticulture here is competitive. The arrangement has rules, the rules have ribbons attached, and the ribbons carry a prestige that is entirely serious to everyone involved. You spend real hours on the thing. You cut, you condition, you balance, you fuss. Then you set it on the table among the others and wait to learn, in public, where your roses placed against your neighbours. The rules are exacting, and you have studied them. There is a category for line arrangements and one for mass, a class for roses and a class for mixed, strict requirements about height and proportion and whether your container is permitted to show. Break a rule, and you are disqualified before the judging even reaches the question of beauty. You measure, you count your stems. You approach a vase of flowers with the rulebook open beside you, because here the rulebook governs the flowers the way it governs everything else. Let's talk about the conditioning, which is the invisible labour underneath the pretty result. You cut the stems at dawn, when the blooms are full of water and the air is still cool and damp. You strip the lower leaves. You stand the flowers in deep buckets in the cool dark of the cellar for hours so they drink and stiffen and hold. By the time anyone admires the arrangement, the real work is long done, performed in the half-light before the house woke, the way all your work is performed before anyone is watching. The head judge is Mrs. Ondarcher, who has won everything worth winning and now circles the tables with a small notebook, lifting a leaf to check the underside, tilting her head at a line, withholding her verdict with the calm cruelty of a woman who knows the whole room is reading her face. She says little. She writes much. A flower club is a gentle place right up until the judging, at which point it becomes a courtroom with better centerpieces. The talent here is quietly surprising. The skill is genuine and it is deep. The women in this room can name 200 cultivars, can force a bulb out of season, can coax a temperamental rose into bloom on the exact morning of the show through a kind of horticultural sorcery that takes years to learn. It is real, deep and patient expertise, the equal of any hobby a man would be congratulated for mastering. Here it earns a small satin ribbon and the right to be quietly resented by your friends until next spring. The competition under the politeness is ferocious, and you feel it in your own chest, the small ugly hope that your arrangement beats Mrs. Pruitt's, who took the blue last year and was unbearable about it in the most gracious possible way. You are not proud of the hope. You have it anyway. The flowers are beautiful and the wanting is not, and both are sitting on the table under the bright hall lights waiting for Mrs. Ondarcher and her terrible little notebook. The arrangement itself is genuinely beautiful. You allow yourself that. 3 roses the colour of a sunburn, a curve of green, a balance you fought for and finally found near midnight. It says something you could not say out loud. All that care and precision and held breath poured into a vase because there was nowhere else this effort was allowed to go. The roses do not know they are competing. The roses, to their credit, stay calm, missus. Ondaatje reaches your table. She lifts a leaf. She tilts her head the exact degree that means she is thinking. Then she sets a small card beside your arrangement and moves on without a word, and you wait until she is safely 3 tables away before you lean in to see what colour it is, your heart doing something undignified, over flowers, in a hall full of women all leaning in to read their own small verdicts at the same time. You sit, eventually, on the side of the membership process that decides who gets to come in, and you learn how the gate actually works. A family wanting to join must be proposed and seconded and then put before the committee, where a very small number of quiet votes against them, in some clubs only one, is enough to end it. The vote is anonymous. No reason is given. No appeal exists. You watch a single unsigned objection close a door on people who will never be told who closed it, or why. The mechanism even has a name, and the name is honest about what it is. It is the blackball, from the old custom of dropping a ball into a box, white to admit and black to reject, so that a single dark sphere among the white could sink a candidate without anyone ever having to put their name to the killing. One person, in private, with no explanation owed to anyone, gets to decide that another family does not belong. The proposing happens long before the vote, and it is its own delicate theatre. A member puts a family forward, vouching for them, attaching his own standing to theirs. Letters of support are gathered. The candidates are looked over at dinners they do not know are auditions, the way you were once looked over, the way everyone here was once looked over. By the time the ballot comes around, the family has been studied like a horse at auction, and they have smiled through all of it, hoping. The committee meets and the box goes around, and you sit there holding your own small power over someone's belonging. Most pass. The room wants them to pass, mostly, because the family is the right sort and everyone already knows them. But now and then the box comes back with a single black mark in it, and the room goes quiet, and a candidacy dies on the table like a candle in a draught, and no one looks at anyone, because any one of you could be the hand that did it. Here is the part that chills you a little, if you let it. The cruelty is in the silence. A rejection you could argue with would be kinder than this. The blackballed family is simply told, gently, by the member who proposed them, that it did not work out this time, and they are left to wonder forever what they did, who objected. Whether it was their name or their faith or some small wrong remark at a dinner a year ago, they get no verdict. They get only the closed door and the rest of their lives to guess at it. Mrs. Calloway, who has sat on this committee for 2 decades, drops her ballot in with the serene efficiency of a woman posting a letter, having long ago made her peace with what the box does. You watch her hand. You wonder what is in her vote, and you will never know, because that is the entire design, the anonymity that lets good, polite and decent people do a hard, cold thing and go home to dinner with no fingerprints. You cast your own vote into the box, and the small weight of it surprises you. This power you did not exactly ask for, and cannot exactly refuse. You belong to a thing whose belonging is defined by who it keeps out, and to be inside it is to be handed, eventually, a turn at the gate. There is no clean way to hold it. You hold it anyway, because the alternative is not belonging either, and you learned long ago which side of that door you intend to stand on. The box completes its circle. The ballots are counted in silence. A name passes or a name dies, and the committee moves to the next item as though nothing weighty just happened, because here nothing weighty is ever allowed to look weighty. You gather your gloves, you go home. Somewhere across town, a family waits by a telephone for news that will arrive, if it arrives at all, with no reasons attached. You live inside a social world whose warmth depends on a wall, and the wall is the part nobody mentions over lunch. The club is, by design, a place for people like you and explicitly not for others. Jewish families, Catholic families, black families are kept out by written rule or by the silent machinery of the blackball, and everyone inside understands this without ever quite saying it. The comfort of belonging is real. It is also built directly on the fact of exclusion, and you are standing on both at the same time. The exclusion is not whispered shame here. It is policy, stated plainly in some bylaws and enforced quietly in the rest, and it is so ordinary that it is rarely even discussed, the way you do not discuss the air. A survey not many years from now will count over 800 clubs and find barely 200 of them open to everyone, and of the rest, hundreds with not a single Jewish member and dozens running flat quotas, a number for how many of the wrong people may pass through the door. The wall, it turns out, has its own grim accounting. A parallel world exists right alongside yours. Shut out of clubs like this one, Jewish families long ago built their own, with their own golf courses and their own ballrooms and their own committees and their own children, learning to swim on a summer afternoon. The whole arrangement duplicated a few miles away down to the brand of the folding lawn chairs. The exclusion did not stop anyone from living well. It simply built a second identical world a few miles away, two communities playing the same game on separate lawns, each pretending the other is not there. You were raised to find this normal, and mostly you do, and that is the uncomfortable part when you let yourself look at it. The same machine that gives you the bridge game and the charity ball and the warm familiar faces at the pool runs on keeping certain faces away from it. The belonging that feels like home is the same belonging that slammed a door on someone else's family, and you cannot have the one without standing on the other, however carefully you avoid thinking about where your feet are. One thing occasionally cuts through. You know some of the people on the other side of the wall. There is Mrs. Reuben, who you see at the market and like enormously, who is sharp, funny and kind, and who will never set foot in your club, and you both know it, and you are both far too well-mannered to ever name it standing there by the cantaloupes. You talk about the weather. You talk about your children. You do not talk about the one large fact standing in the aisle between you, patient as a coat rack, because there is nothing to say that politeness would survive. The children absorb it the way children absorb everything, without being told. They learn whose families are at the pool and whose are never at the pool, which names appear at the dances and which never appear anywhere, and they learn it as simple fact, the shape of the world rather than a choice anyone made. The wall reproduces itself in them quietly, gently over summers, until they too will find it perfectly normal and will build their own version and will not be able to say exactly when they decided to. The afternoon at the club is lovely, as always, the laughter easy and the lawn green and the familiar faces glad to see you. You belong here, completely, warmly, and the belonging is real every minute of it. So is the wall that makes it possible. You carry both home, the warmth, and the weight of it, and you set them down together, because by now you cannot tell where the one ends and the other begins. You operate inside an information network that has no wires and no schedule and yet delivers everything to everyone with remarkable speed. A thing said at the bridge table on Tuesday reaches the pool by Thursday and the dinner party by Saturday. You are a node in this network whether you want to be or not. You pass things along, you receive things, you learn to read what a pause means and what a particular kindness is covering. The network keeps the whole community informed, and it keeps every single member of it carefully in line. The network has no headquarters and needs none. It runs on telephone calls made in the late morning, on conversations across the back hedge, on the small exchanges at the market and the long ones at the salon while the dryers roar. A piece of news enters at any point and travels outward through all of it at once, mutating slightly as it goes, gathering detail it did not start with, until by the time it reaches the far edge of town it has grown a whole second story nobody can quite source. Let's talk about the currency. Because gossip is currency, and you spend it carefully. To know a thing first is to have something. To share it is to spend it, buying closeness with the woman you tell, and you choose your purchases with care, because spend the wrong secret to the wrong person, and the debt comes back on you. You have learned what to pass and what to hold. The holding is the harder skill, and the more valuable. The undisputed switchboard is Mrs. Tilburn, who knows everything before anyone, who can tell you across the fence with a watering can in her hand exactly whose marriage is straining and whose son was sent home from school and whose new car is not paid for. She delivers it all in the same warm, confiding and practiced murmur, never unkind on the surface, always perfectly informed underneath. You are wary of her and you cannot afford to be cold to her because the switchboard decides which calls go through. Fear keeps you careful. The network is not only how news travels, it is how the community governs itself, the enforcement arm of 1,000 unwritten rules. A woman who steps wrong does not get a warning. She gets talked about, gently, persistently, until the talk becomes a temperature around her that she can feel without ever being able to point to it. The gossip is the law, the court, and the sentence all at once, and it never raises its voice. You felt it yourself, once, after a small misstep you barely remember, a remark that landed wrong at a luncheon, and for 2 weeks the greetings were a half-degree cooler and the invitations a touch slower, and you never saw the verdict, only the weather of it. You corrected course without ever being told what the course was. That is how the network teaches. It does not explain. It simply adjusts the temperature until you adjust yourself. So you tend your place in it with constant low care, passing the harmless news to keep the channels warm, holding the dangerous news to keep yourself safe, staying neither too silent, which reads as cold, nor too eager, which reads as cheap. It is exhausting, this perpetual small diplomacy, and it is also genuinely skilled, a kind of social fluency that would run a newsroom if anyone thought to call it that. They do not. They call it being a good neighbour. The phone rings mid-morning, and it is news. Of course it is. A small, bright piece of someone else's life arriving for your inspection. You receive it warmly. You will decide, in the next hour, what to do with it, where to send it, or whether to hold it. The same calculation you make a dozen times a day. You hang up. You stand a moment in the quiet kitchen, holding the new thing, a node in the network, humming along with all the others, keeping the town informed and in line. You spend your summer afternoons at the club pool, and your children spend theirs being quietly trained for the life you already live. There are swimming lessons, tennis lessons, junior golf, and a whole curriculum of how to behave that comes with them. You supervise from the edge, you make conversation with the other mothers, and you watch your children being watched. The pool is not only recreation, it is an early, gentle, relentless education in which fork, which manners, and which children one is meant to befriend. The pool itself is loud and bright and smells of chlorine and coconut oil, the water flashing white in the high sun, the snack bar frying things in the back. It looks like pure summer freedom, and for the children splashing and shrieking, it nearly is. But around the edges, in the deck chairs, a quieter, slower, and more watchful institution is running, the one where the mothers sit and the lessons that actually matter are taught. None of them about swimming. Some lessons come with a fee and an instructor. Young Bradley learns the crawl from a college boy named Chip who blows a whistle and counts strokes. Your daughter learns tennis from a patient man in white who teaches her to lose without sulking, which is the real curriculum dressed up as a backhand. They are being given skills, yes, but more than that they are being given the surfaces of belonging, the strokes and serves and manners that will mark them, later, as the right sort without anyone having to ask. The deeper education has no instructor and no whistle. It is in the watching. Your children learn, by absorbing the deck around them, which families matter and which are merely tolerated, which children to seek out and which to drift away from, how loud is too loud, and how much wanting is unseemly. They are learning the whole grammar of the place through their skin, the same way you once did, and they could not tell you a word of it, because the best lessons here are the ones nobody admits are being taught. Your own children give you a small pause. You can see it working on them. Your son, who a year ago played with anyone, has begun to sort his afternoons, to gravitate toward the right boys and ease away from the others. And he does it without cruelty and without thought, simply following the current he was put in. You did not teach him this. The deck taught him this, while you sat 10 feet away making pleasant conversation, and you are not sure whether to be proud or quietly sorry, so you are both. Mrs. Farrows, 2 chairs down, narrates her own children's standing without seeming to, mentioning lightly which boy from the right family has taken an interest in her eldest, filing the information for everyone's benefit, a casting director reviewing the season's young talent. You smile and contribute your own small piece, because not contributing would itself be noted. The mothers are running a quiet matchmaking and ranking operation under cover of sunscreen, and everyone knows it, and no one would dream of saying so. There is real sweetness in the afternoons too, and you hold on to it. Your daughter surfacing with a grin and water in her lashes to show you something, the wet, warm hug, the popsicle melting faster than she can manage it. These are genuine, and they are happening at the same time as all the sorting, and you let yourself have the sweetness anyway, because a mother here learns to hold both at once, or she does not last the summer. The afternoon winds down and you gather the towels, the wet suits, the tired sun-struck children, and you herd them toward the car. They are happy. They had a good day, a real one, splashing and shrieking and being children. In the car, your daughter falls asleep against the window before the first stop sign, smelling of chlorine and grape popsicle, one wet sandal already lost to the floor mat, and for the length of a red light you just look at her. You are graded, constantly and indirectly, on how your children turn out in public. A child who is well-dressed, well-mannered, and accomplished is read as proof that you are doing your job correctly. A child who acts up, struggles, or embarrasses is read as proof of the opposite, and the reading happens through the same gossip and the same glances that govern everything else. So you manage them carefully before every appearance. Their behavior is their own, but the verdict on it lands squarely, and only, on you. The grading is never announced and never stops. Every time the children appear in public, scrubbed and dressed for it, they are walking evidence, exhibits in an ongoing trial of your competence as a mother. A clean part in the hair is a point in your favour. A scuffed shoe is a small deduction. A tantrum in the club dining room is a catastrophe that will be discussed gently for a week, with your name attached, not the 4-year-old's. The preparation is its own performance, staged before the performance. Before any appearance, you inspect them like a sergeant before review. The collar's straight, the face is clean, the manners rehearsed. You coach them in the car, say good afternoon to Mrs. Holloway. Do not interrupt. Do not mention the thing about your father. You are sending small, unpredictable ambassadors into a hostile diplomatic situation, and you are responsible for everything they do once they are out of your hands. The injustice of it is structural and total. The credit, when they shine, goes mostly to them, the polished, accomplished children, and a little to their father's good name. The blame, when they falter, comes entirely to you. A boy who wins the junior tennis is a credit to the family. A boy who throws his racket is a failure of his mother specifically, as though his temper were a dish you undercooked. You own the downside completely and rent the upside briefly, which is no kind of deal at all. Here is the part that twists in you. You love them, helplessly and enormously, and the love and the management are tangled together in a way you cannot quite separate. You want them combed and mannered partly because the world demands it of you, and partly, you tell yourself, because it will go easier for them if they fit. The two motives braid together until you cannot tell whether you are protecting your children or grooming your own report card, and most days you decide not to look too closely at the knot. Your youngest, Tommy, is the one who keeps you honest, because Tommy will not be managed. He is for and entirely himself, loud, bright, and immune to coaching, and he says the true wrong thing at the worst possible moment with the pure conviction of someone who has never heard of a membership committee. You adore him for it and you dread taking him anywhere, and both feelings arrive at full strength every single time you buckle him into the car. There is a cost to the children in all of it, and you see it and try to soften it. A child raised as evidence learns early that love comes braided with performance, that being good and being loved are somehow the same transaction, and you do not want to teach them that, and you are teaching them that anyway, because the whole world around you is the lesson and you are only one voice in it. So you hug them hard and unconditionally in the private hours, trying to plant something the deck and the dining room cannot reach. The appearance ends and you load them back into the car, mostly successful, one small incident you will hear about later, and you exhale the particular breath of a mother who got her exhibits through the trial more or less intact. They are tired and pleased and entirely unaware they were on display. You let them stay unaware as long as you can. It is the one mercy in the whole arrangement that is actually yours to give. You serve on the Parent-Teacher Association and you serve in the Church Guild, and both of them assume your time is free because, technically, it is. There are meetings to attend, bake sales to staff, drives to organise, and committees that need a reliable woman who will actually do the work. You are that woman, repeatedly in several organisations at once. The work is unpaid and largely invisible, and it holds up a remarkable amount of community life. You say yes because saying no is noticed, and being noticed for the wrong thing is the danger. The PTA runs on women like you and pretends it runs on enthusiasm. The school needs the full carnival, the spring fundraiser, the room mothers, the field trip chaperones, the endless trays of cupcakes, and it gets all of it for free from a standing army of mothers who are simply assumed to be available. You bake when asked. You staff the booth in the cold. You count the proceeds into neat paper rolls at a folding table after everyone else has gone home with their tired children, a competence that would look impressive on a resume you will never be asked to write. The word volunteer does a great deal of quiet work in your life. Volunteer suggests a choice. a free glad offering of spare time. What it actually describes is an obligation dressed in nicer clothes. You are expected at the guild meeting the way you are expected at church, and the expectation is no less binding for never being written down. A woman who declines too often finds the requests stop coming, and the stopping is not relief, it is exile, because the requests were also how she belonged. The church guild has its own missus, at the helm missus. Stoddard, who runs the altar flowers and the funeral luncheons and the visiting of the sick with the brisk, devout and tireless efficiency of a woman who has organised grief itself into a rotation. She assigns you a casserole for the Pruitt family, whose father is ailing, and you make it. Of course you make it, because this is the one corner of all the unpaid labour that feels unambiguously good, food carried to a grieving house by women who simply show up. One thing is genuinely worth saying plainly. An enormous amount of the community actually functions on this invisible female labour, and almost none of it is counted. The schools, the churches, the charities, the whole soft infrastructure of a town that makes it livable rather than merely zoned, all of it rests on women doing unpaid work that everyone benefits from and no one tallies. Pull the women out and the whole thing collapses in a week. Nobody pulls the women out. Nobody has to. The women keep showing up. You do not entirely resent it, and that is the complicated truth of it. The casserole for the Pruitts is real kindness, and you are glad to be the kind of person who carries it. The carnival did give the children a good day. The work, unpaid and uncounted as it is, builds something genuine, a web of people who show up for one another, and you are proud to be a thread in it, even as you notice that the thread is always, somehow, a woman. The meeting adjourns and you collect your coat and your list of new obligations, the casserole, the booth, the tray of cupcakes due Thursday. You drive home through the early dark, already planning the baking around the dinner, around the children, around the husband's late train. It is a great deal to hold. You hold it the way you hold all of it, and you will be back next month to take on a little more, because that, in the end, is what being a good woman here costs, and you have quietly decided to pay it. You play tennis at the club, and you learn that winning and losing are both governed by rules that have nothing to do with tennis. There is a way to win that keeps your friendships intact, and a way to lose that does the same, and both require reading the social standing of the woman across the net before the first serve. You compete, genuinely, because the game is real, but you also calculate, quietly, what beating this particular person will cost you off the court, and sometimes the smartest shot is the one you let go by. The tennis whites are crisp, and the morning is cool, and the game itself, for a few sets, is honest. The ball does what physics says. A clean winner down the line is a clean winner, indifferent to anyone's husband or committee standing, and there is a real pleasure in that honesty. A few bright minutes where the only thing that matters is whether you reach the ball. You live for those minutes. They are rarer than the scoreboard suggests. A second game runs underneath the first. Your opponent today is Mrs. Vandermeer, who outranks you socially by a comfortable margin and knows it, and the question hanging over the match is not really who is the better player but what it will cost to find out. Beat her too soundly and you have embarrassed a woman who decides things, who chairs the committee you would like to join, and the win will follow you off the court in ways no trophy compensates for. The calculus is exhausting, and it never stops. So you play the most delicate game in the sport, which is the game of winning enough and not too much. You take a set, because throwing the whole match is its own insult, and she would see it. You give a set back, gracefully, on points that look natural. You manage the score the way you manage everything, calibrating, smoothing, making sure the final number flatters everyone and threatens no one. It is the structural integrity of a soufflé, this balance, and one wrong shot collapses it. The strange part is the skill itself. You are good at tennis, really good. Good enough that playing your actual best would be a small social catastrophe. The skill is a thing you mostly have to hide, letting it out only in measured doses, in mixed company, against the right opponents, the way you hide every other capability you possess. So the backhand stays mostly in its holster. Mrs. Vandermeer, to her credit, plays a sharp, aggressive and relentless game and grunts unapologetically when she hits, and you find you like her better on the court than off it, where the ranking sits between you like a chaperone. For a few games you almost forget the arithmetic and just rally. Two women hitting hard in the morning sun, and it is wonderful. And then a ball comes to your backhand at a moment that matters, and you feel the old calculation click back on. You place it just wide, on purpose. You will never tell anyone. The match ends at a score that satisfies the larger requirements, close enough to be respectable, tilted the correct way by a margin that costs you nothing important. You shake hands at the net. She says you gave her a real game, and means it, and you did, just not the one she thinks. The two of you walk off toward the clubhouse talking lightly, the ranking restored, the friendship intact, the actual question of who is better left politely unanswered where it belongs. You towel off and order the iced tea and let the morning settle. There was a real game in there, somewhere, buried under the management, a few honest minutes of pure tennis you got to keep. You hold on to those. The rest you file away with all the other small surrenders, the shots you placed wide on purpose, the skill you keep holstered, the wins you decline, so that the larger game, the one that never ends, keeps going your way. You are in a competition you never formally entered, and it is scored on the lawn, the car, the appliances, the drapes, and the children's shoes. Everything visible is being compared to everything visible next door, all the time, by everyone. You did not start this, but you cannot opt out of it either, because opting out is itself a visible move that gets read, so you keep pace. You notice what the neighbours acquired and you quietly weigh whether you must match it, and the scoreboard never once turns off. The arena is the street itself, and everything that faces it is on display. The lawn must be green and edged, a flat civic statement that this house is in order. The car in the drive must be the right car, recent enough, large enough. The wood-panelled station wagon that says family and money in the same chrome breath. The drapes the neighbours can glimpse through the front window must suggest the rooms behind them are as tasteful as the rooms you actually have, which is a separate and ongoing project. The Petersons are the engine of half the street's anxiety without lifting a finger. They got the new car in the spring. They added the patio in June. Mrs. Peterson appeared at the club in a coat that started a quiet, weeks-long campaign of similar coats appearing, each woman insisting hers was an entirely independent decision. The Petersons are not even doing it on purpose. They are simply ahead, and being ahead is a provocation whether they intend it or not, a pace car the whole street is forced to chase. The terrible engine of it is that the competition is endless, circular, and pitiless by design. Match the car, and there is a newer car. Match the patio, and someone screens in a porch. Every acquisition that should bring rest brings instead a brief plateau before the next thing appears on the next lawn, and the wanting starts up again. You are running on a track that adds a lap every time you finish one, and the prize for keeping up is the privilege of continuing to keep up, which is no prize at all. In the quiet hours, something unsettles you. You are not even sure you want most of it. The new coat, the newer car, the screened porch, you find them pleasant enough and largely beside the point, and yet you pursue them with real anxiety anyway, because wanting them is not really the engine. Not falling behind is the engine. You are not chasing the thing on the lawn. You are fleeing the verdict that would land if your lawn were the one that slipped, and fear, you have found, is a faster horse than desire. Walter does not quite see it, which is its own small loneliness. To him, the new appliance is just a purchase, a number weighed against the budget, and he cannot quite understand why you care so precisely about the Petersons' patio, because he does not stand in the daily current of comparison the way you do. He competes downtown, in salaries and titles and accounts. You compete here, in coats and lawns and casseroles, and your arena is no less real for being decorated with petunias. So you keep pace, because the alternative is a slow, visible slipping you cannot afford, and because, God help you, you have started to enjoy the winning. And you tend the lawn and choose the drapes and weigh the coat against the budget and the neighbours in equal measure. The scoreboard glows on, out there on the street, totting up the cars and the patios and the children's shoes. You play because everyone plays, and to stop playing is simply to lose more visibly, and you have come too far up the street to be the house that lets the green go. You host a party in your own living room that is, underneath the friendliness, a sales floor, and it is one of the very few ways you can earn money of your own without embarrassing your husband. The product is sealable plastic containers. The method is invitations, refreshments, a demonstration, and the gentle social pressure of friends in folding chairs. You run it like the small business it secretly is. The income is modest and it is yours, and the fact that it has to arrive disguised as a social occasion tells you a great deal. The genius of the arrangement is that it lets a respectable woman sell things without ever appearing to sell things. A wife cannot take a job behind a counter that would shame her husband, suggest he could not provide. But she can have the girls over for coffee and just happen to demonstrate a marvelous new bowl that burps when you seal it. And somehow money changes hands and no one has done anything so vulgar as commerce. It is a job wearing the costume of a coffee morning. Let's talk about the demonstration, which you have down to an art. You seal the bowl and tip it over your own head to prove it holds, a small, silly, and reliable piece of theatre that gets a laugh every time. You pass the containers around. You let the women handle them, imagine them in their own cupboards, and you never push, because pushing is the one move that breaks the spell that this is friendship rather than a transaction. The soft sell is the only sell that works in a living room. The model was built by a woman named Mrs. Brownie Wise, who understood something the men running the company did not, which is that women would buy from friends in a parlour what they would never buy from a stranger in a store. She turned the home party into an empire and became, for a time, the most powerful woman in the business, the rare case of a woman's social gift being counted as the asset it always was. You think of her sometimes, mid-demonstration, sealing a bowl in your living room. Here is the part that means more than the money. The dollars are small, a little folding cash that does not change your circumstances. But the money is yours, earned, not handed to you from the household account with the quiet weight of a gift. And there is a feeling in that you did not expect, a small straightening of the spine. For one evening a month you are not spending his earnings. You are making your own, however little, and the little turns out to matter far past its size. The women come because they like you, and because the bowls are genuinely useful, and because, though no one says it, these evenings are a release valve, a reason to gather that is theirs, lubricated by coffee instead of cocktails, and lit by a different energy than the club. Mrs. Dabrowski buys the whole canister set, and laughs that her husband will never notice. You write up the order. You all know exactly what kind of evening this is, and you all agree, warmly and without a word, to keep calling it a party. They leave with their bowls and their warm goodbyes, and you tally the orders at the cleared table, the modest column of figures that is, against everything, a small income statement with your name at the top. You will mail it in. A check will come back, made out to you, and you will do something with it that is entirely your decision, and the smallness of that freedom will not diminish how much you find you needed it. You stack the sample bowls. You turn off the lamp. You made money tonight, quietly, in a dress, and you are not supposed to call it that, so you do not, but you know. You change your clothes for the second or third time today, because the evening has its own dress code and the afternoon's outfit will not carry you into it. Off comes the day dress. On comes the cocktail dress, the repaired makeup, the refreshed perfume, the heels. You are getting ready to entertain or to be entertained, and either way the night ahead requires a different version of you than the one who shopped and cleaned and chaired the meeting. You assemble her in front of the mirror. She looks like she slept in. The day has had costumes all the way through, and you have worn each of them in turn. The morning robe, the shirtwaist for the errands, the slightly better dress for the luncheon, the tennis whites. And now, as the light goes gold and slants long across the bedroom floor, the evening's outfit, the most constructed of all, the one that has to read as glamour after a day that has already used you up. You are a quick change artist in a show with no intermission. The cocktail dress is a different machine entirely from the daytime kind. It is darker, sleeker, cut to suggest leisure you have not had a minute of. It wants a fresh girdle, because the afternoon's has done its work and surrendered, and it wants the good shoes that look wonderful and feel like a polite threat. You step back into the engineering. You take the small, careful breath the dress requires. You become, once more, a woman who appears not to be holding anything in. The makeup is not a touch-up now, but a rebuild. You wipe away the day's softened face and draw on the evenings, the deeper lipstick, the powder set just so, the small, precise strokes that turn a tired woman at dusk into someone who looks like she is only now beginning her day. The perfume goes on last, at the wrist and the throat, a fresh, bright and heady cloud of it to walk in, the final layer of the disguise, the one you can smell yourself. In the mirror, something catches you. You are good at this, the transformation, genuinely skilled at building a rested, glowing woman out of the depleted raw material of yourself at the end of a long day. It is real craft, the kind a film studio pays people well to do. You do it for free, twice a day, on your own face, and the only review you will get is a husband saying you look nice and a room full of women silently grading the dress and grading you along with it. The artistry is total and the credit is a shrug. There is a strange, small grief in the mirror at this hour, and you have learned not to linger in it. The woman looking back is lovely, assembled, ready, and she is also a construction you have just spent 20 minutes building over the actual you, who is tired and would like to sit down. You meet her eyes. You do not dislike her. You only notice, briefly, the distance between the woman in the glass and the one operating her, and then you blink, and the noticing passes, because there is a night to get through. Walter calls up the stairs that the car is warming, and the moment closes, and you take one last look, smooth the dress over the girdle, and descend toward the evening fully assembled. You will be charming and bright and tireless for 4 more hours. No one will guess at the day stacked up behind the perfume. You built the evening's woman out of nothing but discipline and a good lipstick, and she will hold, because she always holds, because you have never once let her do otherwise. Not once. Not in all these years. You help run the season of dances and the debutante cotillion, because the club organises the social debut of its young people and the mothers organise the club. There are invitations, escorts, dance cards, dress fittings, and a careful choreography of who is presented and to whom. You manage pieces of it for your own children and pieces of it for the club at large. The whole apparatus exists to introduce the next generation to exactly the right people, and you are one of the hands making sure the introductions land correctly. The cotillion presents itself as a fairy tale and functions as a marketplace. On the surface it is white gloves and a waltz, young women in pale gowns descending a staircase to polite applause, a tradition so pretty it is easy to mistake for harmless. Underneath, it is the careful, deliberate introduction of marriageable young people from the right families to one another, a system for sorting the next generation into suitable pairs, dressed up in tulle so no one has to call it what it is. The dance card, that small ornamental thing on a ribbon, is in fact a scheduling document with consequences. Who a young woman dances with, and in what order, is noticed and remembered and discussed. The right boy on the card is a small triumph for his mother and hers both. You watch the cards fill from the edge of the ballroom with the close attention of a woman reading a ticker tape, because every name penciled in is a tiny negotiation between families, conducted by children who think they are simply dancing. The gowns alone are a campaign. Mrs. Ferris has had her daughter's dress made 3 times over. The seamstress summoned back for adjustments that are really anxieties, because the girl must look perfect, must look expensive but not eager, lovely but not loud. You have watched it up close more than once, the fittings, the tears, the late nights, and you know that the dress is never only a dress. It is the family's whole standing rendered in silk and worn down a staircase under 300 watching eyes. Watching the young ones glow under the chandeliers, something gives you pause. They think it is romance. They believe, the lovely earnest children, that this is about music and moonlight and the boy across the floor, and you have not the heart and would not be permitted to tell them that it is also, quietly, a machine, the same sorting machine that ran their grandmothers down the same staircase, doing its patient, ancient and tireless work behind the waltz. You let them have the moonlight. The machine does not mind being mistaken for moonlight. You move through the evening doing the invisible work, steering a shy girl toward a kind boy, refilling the punch, smoothing a small disaster when a dress strap gives way in the cloakroom, managing the night the way you manage every night, from below and unseen. The mothers are the stage crew of this production, and the production runs flawlessly precisely because the audience never sees you working. The children dance. You make the dancing possible and take none of the bows. The cotillion ends near midnight, a triumph, the young people flushed and happy, the introductions made, the machine satisfied for another season. You gather the abandoned dance cards and the spilled programs, the small debris of a successful debut, because someone has to, and it is never once one of the men. The Ferris girl floats past on a cloud of her first real evening, certain it was all magic, and you let her keep the certainty, holding the truth of it gently, the way you hold everything, while the chandeliers dim and the staircase empties and the next generation begins, without knowing it, exactly where you began. You may have help in the house, a woman who comes in to clean or cook or mind the children, and the relationship with her is one more thing you are expected to manage perfectly. You set the tasks, you set the tone. You are, suddenly, an employer, with all the daily decisions that involves, and almost no guidance on how to do it well. The etiquette books have opinions about servants. The reality is a person in your kitchen whose work makes your performance possible, and whose presence you are supposed to direct gracefully and rarely discuss. Her name is Loretta, and she comes 3 days a week, and she is better at parts of your job than you are, which is a fact you both know and neither of you mentions. She can iron a shirt in half the time and get a stain out of a tablecloth you had given up for dead. The effortless house that everyone admires is, on the days she comes, substantially her doing, and the credit for it lands on you, which is its own small uncomfortable accounting you have learned to carry without examining too closely. The strangeness of the position is worth sitting with for a moment. You spend your life as the unpaid labour in your husband's enterprise, uncredited, essential, off the books. And then, in your own kitchen, you become the one who holds that same kind of power over another woman, who pays her, directs her, evaluates her, sends her home. You are the worker and the boss in the same life, on different floors of it, and the doubleness sits oddly in you on the mornings Loretta arrives. The etiquette guides address all this in the chilly language of managing staff, full of rules about formality and distance and never becoming too familiar. The rules assume a clean hierarchy and a clear conscience. The kitchen, where 2 women work a few feet apart all morning, is warmer and messier than the rules allow, full of small, real and ordinary exchanges about children and weather and aching feet, a human relationship that keeps insisting on being human despite the structure built to keep it from it. There is something you do not let yourself look at directly. Loretta has her own home, her own children, her own long bus ride at the end of the day to a life you know almost nothing about, and the comfort of your effortless household runs partly on her labour the way your husband's career runs partly on yours. You are a link in a chain of women holding up other people's lives, and below you on that chain stands Loretta, holding up yours, and the whole arrangement is so ordinary that almost no one ever names it. You try to be decent. Within the narrow room the structure leaves you. You pay her a little better than the going rate. You ask about her boy and remember his name and listen to the answer. You send food home on the holidays. None of it changes the shape of the thing. The basic fact of who cleans whose house and who rides the bus home in the dark. But it is what is available to you, small human decencies inside an arrangement you did not design and cannot dismantle from your kitchen. At the end of the day, Loretta hangs up her apron, and you settle what is owed, and she gathers her things for the long ride home, and the 2 of you exchange a goodbye that is genuinely warm and sits on top of everything unspoken. The house gleams behind her, her work and yours braided together until no guest could tell them apart. You watch her go down the walk toward the bus stop in the failing light, a woman who helped you hold up your life, going to go hold up her own. You are caught on a wheel that never stops turning, because every dinner you accept must eventually be returned, and every dinner you give will be returned to you in turn. The obligation is endless by construction. You host, which puts the others in your debt, which means they will host, which puts you back in theirs. So you plan the next evening while you are still cleaning up from the last one. The entertaining is genuinely warm, and the friendships are genuinely real, and the wheel underneath them still never, ever stops. The arithmetic is simple and inescapable. You owe the Hendersons, who had you in the spring with that roast mister. Henderson carved at the table while making the same joke he makes every time. You owe the Coopers, twice over now, which is becoming a small pressure at the back of your mind. The debts pile up like dishes, and the only way to clear one is to incur the matching obligation in the other direction, so that paying down the wheel and turning the wheel are the exact same motion. What a single evening actually costs is the part that hides behind the candlelight. Days before, there is the menu, the marketing, the cleaning, the polishing of silver that was already clean. The day of, there is the cooking that starts at dawn and the table set by afternoon and the self-assembled into the hostess by 6. The evening itself is 4 hours of charm performed while quietly running a kitchen, and after, when the door closes on the last warm goodbye, there is the wreckage. And the wreckage is always yours alone. The wheel has no resting place built into it anywhere. The night you are not hosting, you are a guest, which is its own performance, the right dress, and the right gift and the right amount of praise for someone else's roast. The night you are neither. You are planning the next time you will be one or the other. There is no week with a clean ledger, no Sunday where nothing is owed in either direction, because the system only works if it keeps moving, and so it keeps you moving with it. When you stop to feel it, one thing genuinely surprises you. You love them. The wheel is exhausting, and the wheel is also made of your actual friendships, the people who know your life because they are living the identical one a few streets over. The same evening is real warmth and real labor at once, the laughter true and the aching feet true, and you cannot pull the two apart any more than you can pull the love out of the marriage and keep only the work, or keep only the love and skip the work. Some nights, scraping plates at 11 while Walter sleeps off the wine, you do the impossible sum of it, the dinners stretching backward for years and forward past the horizon, and the endlessness of it sits on you for a moment, heavy and clear. Then you rinse the last glass and turn off the kitchen light, because the feeling is not useful, and the morning comes early, and the Coopers, after all, still need to be had back before it gets awkward, which, if you are honest, it already faintly is. You hang the dish towel to dry and climb the stairs in the quiet house. Tomorrow you will write the note thanking no one, because tonight you hosted, and instead you will start the list for the Coopers, the menu and the marketing and the silver, the wheel already turning under your hand before you have even slept. It is a warm, full and relentless life, braided too tight to separate. You pull the blanket up. The wheel waits in the dark, patient, turning, ready for you in the morning. You know things now that you did not know when you started, and most of what you know lives in your hands and your calendar rather than in anything you could say out loud. You know the exact weight of a girdle by late afternoon. You know which silence at the bridge table means trouble. You know how to mix the drink, set the table, read the room, and hold the whole performance together one more evening. The knowledge is real and hard-won. It is also a strange thing to be an expert at. You know the sound of his car against all the other cars, the particular crunch of his tires on your gravel, and your hand reaches for the shaker before your mind has caught up. You know how cold the gin should be by the feel of the bottle. You know the count for dipping a gelatin mold, and the count is in your fingers now, not your head. The body learned all of this while you were busy, and it performs it without asking, 1,000 small competencies stored below the level of words. The calendar you read like a second language. You know that 2 dinners owed to the same couple is a problem, and 3 is an insult. You know which Tuesday the bridge game falls and what to bring and where to sit. You know, looking at a week, exactly how much it will take out of you, the way a farmer knows a field, and you plant and harvest it accordingly, and you are rarely wrong by more than an hour. You know faces too, better than you know almost anything. You know what a half degree of coolness in a hello means, and how long it will last, and what small thing will warm it back. You know which compliment is a knife and which is genuine, and the difference is in the eyes, not the words. You learn to read a room the way other people learn to read music. Until now it happens without effort. The whole social weather of a gathering arriving in you the moment you walk in. Here is what the knowing feels like, held in the hand. It is the competence of a woman who could run almost anything, and was given this to run, and so she runs it flawlessly, every drink and seam and seating chart and silence. An expertise vast, deep, and shaped exactly to the size of the rooms she is allowed into. You are very good at this. The sentence is true and it is heavy, and you set it down most days without turning it over, because there is a roast to start and the turning over does not get the roast started. There are the small mercies you have learned to keep for yourself, and you keep them deliberately. The first cup of coffee drunk standing in the dark before the house wakes. The 3 honest holes of golf in the wet Tuesday grass. The cheque that comes back with your own name on it. The hard private hug given to a child with no audience anywhere. You have learned where the unwatched minutes hide in a watched life, and you go to them the way you would go to a window, for the air. The house is quiet now, the dish is done, the children breathing upstairs, the day finally folded and put away. You move through the dark rooms, turning off the lamps, your hand finding each switch without looking, and you check the door, and you set out what the morning will need, because the morning will need it and you are the one who knows what. You climb the stairs. You unclip the day piece by piece, and lay it over the chair. Tomorrow it goes back on. Tonight, for a few hours you set it down, and the house holds its breath around you, and you rest. You spent the night waking a sleeping house before dawn, knotting a tie around a man who could not be trusted with his own collar, and mixing a cold martini to beat a car to the door. You balanced shrimp inside a trembling dome of lime gelatin. You guarded a hairdo against the weather and a bridge seat against the world, And somewhere across town, a committee decided a family's whole future with a single quiet bean and never had to say why. The women who actually lived this were running an enormous operation that no one ever thought to put on the books. They kept the ledgers of who owed whom a dinner entirely in their heads. They ran the charity balls and the flower shows and the long bus of obligations, and they held a whole community together with unpaid hands, and they did it in a girdle that gripped like a warm, disappointed handshake. There was genuine skill in it, and there was real friendship too, the kind that flickers up between the calculations when you least expect it. The coffee was good, drunk standing in the dark before anyone woke. The 3 honest holes of golf in the wet Tuesday grass were honest all the way through. Not every minute was heavy. Some of them, the unwatched ones, were entirely their own. Thank you for spending this long, quiet hour with me, drifting through a world of cold gin and defended hairdos and beautifully arranged exhaustion. There is no committee here, no seat to guard, no drink to have waiting. There is nothing at all that you owe anyone tonight. So let your shoulders drop, all the way down. Let the whole long list of the day go soft and far away. Let your eyes close. You've earned it. Sleep well.